We get asked a lot about longer cruises, like traveling across the ocean.
Yeah, that's about as long as you're going to get.
Well, we should talk about that. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Terry with Next Wave Cruising,
I'm Rich with Next Wave Cruising.
and we're about to wrap up a trans-ocean voyage right now. We're
Yep.
still on board, and we're finishing up a transatlantic crossing, and they happen twice a year.
Right. Yeah, we chose the one that comes back to the U.S. So we started in Barcelona,
Okay.
and we made some stops in Spain, and ended up here in Fort Lauderdale.
That's right. So we'll be in Fort Lauderdale to disembark, and that's really a nice way to come back to the U.S. because you have one flight,
Right.
and the cruise takes you the rest of the way.
Well, it's one flight for us because living in Florida, we just drive home after this. So this is going to be pretty nice. It brings us back home. We don't have to deal with getting back onto a plane. So that's great for us.
And many people have said they were
Right.
in driving distance of the ports,
Sure.
or it's a short flight back as opposed to an international set of flights back.
Right.
And so it's a really nice way to combine a European vacation with a relaxing transit and maybe a little extra time on board a ship.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about what the experience is like when you're on a trans-ocean voyage. You're probably talking about 13, 15 or more nights
Right.
on the cruise. And
Right.
as you said, some of that includes stops toward the beginning or toward the end.
Right.
And then there are certainly periods of ocean crossing where you have days at sea, one after the other.
Right. And, I kind of like the ship part of cruising, so I enjoy being on the ship. So that part for me was great. But it was also nice coupling it in with some ports that you wouldn't normally get to. And we saw some things that, some areas that we never saw before. So it was great
right.
for that.
Like we
And-
went to the Azores. So
Right.
those are islands that are not quite, but almost halfway
Right.
between Europe and North America.
Right, you're not
And
gonna.
that's a great way to get to a spot like that and sample something we wouldn't have seen
And that
otherwise.
was a
We
beautiful
loved
place.
it.
That was really great. And you're not going to get to that if you're doing Mediterranean cruises or if you're doing Caribbean cruises. You're never going to get to those unless you happen to be doing a transatlantic.
Right. Now, in terms of those multiple days at sea, one of the things that we were keeping an eye out for, and I think the cruise line, in this case, Celebrity Cruises, did a great job, was providing enough activities on board that if you didn't want to be doing a puzzle, reading a book, or looking at your iPad,
Right.
did you have opportunities to engage and do other kinds of activities?
Right.
And there was a full schedule every single day.
Well, there really was. I think that the cruise directors have a little easier time nowadays with Wi-Fi because that does keep people occupied to a certain degree. But we had all kinds of stuff going on, even to the point where we had a passenger choir that was made.
Right, and they did a special show for us
yeah.
a night or two ago, and
Yeah.
they were really good.
It
They
was
worked hard at
excellent.
it.
They worked hard at it. They had great accompaniment, and it was a fun night.
It really was. And there were all the usual activities. There's now pickleball on board. There's the usual cornhole, or sometimes they call it bago. I don't know where that name came from. Ring tosses, paper
Right.
airplane flying,
Right.
boat building,
Boat building,
and
yeah.
floating them in the solarium pool or the pool deck, depending on the weather.
Right.
And, there's all that kind of thing, as well as lots going on in the clubs and in the theaters, and
Right.
lots of live performers who were just
Oh, goodness.
excellent.
Yeah, the performers, that's the nice thing that you get on a larger ship, such as going with Celebrity or Royal Caribbean or NCL, or they have a caliber of performers that are really top notch.
Well, I think Celebrity invests in that, as does Royal Caribbean.
Oh, certainly.
Maybe more so than even some of the other lines we've been on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same 2 or 3 people showing up in every venue. They
Right.
rotate. Every one of them is nicer or better than the next, with a slightly different emphasis or genre that they,
Yep.
can deliver. And they were top notch.
They really were.
And the headliner performers came in and really packed the house.
They
The
did.
theaters were full. They came back and did multiple shows.
Right.
So kudos to the activities team and the cruise director for putting that package together. So it doesn't mean that you'll be bored just because you're on board the ship for maybe 4 or 5 days in a row
Right.
on an ocean crossing.
Right. Now we also did the Trans-Pacific this year as well.
That's
so
right.
that was also a different. We did that coming back to the U.S. as well. We started off in Australia, and we hit New Zealand, and then some of the the islands, French Polynesia along the way, and ended up in Maui. So
And then we ended up in Honolulu to get off. It was great.
Right, and on both, we started out chilly and then got warmer and warmer as we kept to the U.S.
We keep getting back to great weather. And now that was even a little bit longer at 18 nights, coming from Sydney to, as you said, New Zealand, French Polynesia, and multiple stops in Hawaii.
Right.
But we probably never had more than 5 days at sea in a row because there were so many places to stop. And I think one of the things you just have to be prepared for, you alluded to it, is that the weather every year is a little bit different. Someone will say, I did the October transit and it was fantastic. Someone else will say, well, I wish we had a little bit better weather for parts of it. You just have to be open to it because it is a change of season.
It is
when
a
the
shoulder
ships are
season.
repositioning.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it really, like, we are sitting here in almost 80-degree weather in the Caribbean on our way back to Florida, and most of the trip, even from the Mediterranean, mid 70s, maybe high 60s when it was cool, and a minimum amount of rain.
Right.
So I really don't think we could complain in terms of crossing over, because we weren't going maybe up to the northern ports where you might have a little different wind conditions and weather conditions.
It's going to be colder up in New York this time of year in November than it is in Florida.
So this is a great transit to think about. Coming from the Mediterranean down to Florida is beautiful.
I don't think there was a day that we had that people weren't able to get into the pool. Even if it was just a part of the day. So it was,
that helps.
There was days you might have gotten a little rain, and usually happened at night. We were lucky for that, but it worked out.
It really was great. So I think if you have the time, if there are some of these port destinations that intrigue you that are not on the typical 7 to 10 night runs when the ships are in position one continent or the other, a transocean voyage might be just the thing for you to think about. I think the rates tend to be pretty good, sometimes because there aren't as many ports per the number of nights you're out, so they're not paying as many port fees as if you were on a 9 or 10 day, kind of destination intensive type of itinerary. And so the rates can be definitely worth looking into. We can help our customers find where the best rates are. And these trips book out early.
They do. A lot of experienced travelers love to nab these transocean cruises.
They really do, and they book them over and over again.
Right.
Even while they're on board, they're know that they're doing the next transocean next year or the year after, as soon as those deployments are open. And usually when deployments open, the best possible pricing. The pricing tends on these popular routes to just go up and up and up closer to the sail date. So we really encourage people to get out in front of it and talk about, what you want to go to see and when you want to see it. Now, one thing I would also talk about that you kind of alluded to, we did Europe back to the US, and we did Australia back to the US when we did the Pacific. And each time we were able to add hours to our day. And so that was kind of nice, especially when you do the transatlantic. People talk about this a lot. If you're heading from the US to Europe in the spring, you give up an hour every day. And so every day gets shorter and shorter, and you have to wake up and get going again. And people notice it, they feel it, because you do that 5 or 6 times to make the transit. On the way back, there are 5 or 6 nights when you get an extra hour of sleep. Your day is long. You just gradually get readjusted back to the time that you're going to
Which is really kind of neat.
And that may be some people's preference. So you may want to think about whether you like spring or fall based on whether you're giving up hours or gaining hours.
Which direction you want to go.
And how is your body going to react to that? Will you enjoy your cruise the same way? It's certainly something to think about that may not be obvious when you look at the itinerary. It's a big factor. So I think that's great. The other thing to think about on these transocean voyages is you do have more nights on the ship, and when there are specialty dining options and multiple venues for food and drinks, you actually can slow down and kind of circulate around in the course of your cruise and experience more of what the ship has to offer.
A more opportunity. If you're on a 7-night cruise, everybody wants to hit those specialty restaurants. Your opportunities are less on that kind of a cruise than they are on a 13-night cruise, where everybody gets a chance to eat wherever they like. So that's
right.
Nice.
And if you just feel like, well, I just can't eat like that 7 days in a row, well, if you have 15 days, you can slow down and try that every couple of days and maybe pace yourself, which is really important. You get to a point where it's hard to keep eating.
It is. So
the food's good.
The food's good, and it's
plentiful.
very tempting. So it's nice to be able to say, I'm skipping lunch or breakfast or even sometimes dinner. You'll just go over to the buffet and pick something up.
And there's really good food at the buffets, even through the dinner hour and late into the evening.
I was really shocked at
It's fine. It's
some of
totally
the
a
selections
great
that they
option.
had there. I was like, holy smokes, they have burrata, and I went, you know,
Fresh,
like,
nice
that's
fresh food.
beautiful. So you know, that was a nice find.
So we're wrapping this up on Celebrity Apex. It's one of the newer Edge class ships. I would certainly recommend that as an ocean crossing opportunity. And yet when we did our Pacific crossing, it was on a little bit of an older ship that was still well maintained, lots to do, beautiful, and we had a blast.
Oh,
We
yeah.
just had such a good time. So I would say almost don't let the ship overly direct what you do. Think about when you can go and
Right.
where you'd like to go,
Where you-
and then we can help really kind of find the right balance between the ship and its offerings and just all these opportunities to enjoy a transocean crossing.
That's true.
You
yeah.
think you'd do it again?
I would. I really would, and I really liked. I enjoyed the Trans-Pacific, and you know, we might consider at some time not getting off in Hawaii and following that up into Alaska, because that's where that ship eventually goes for its summer months.
That's right.
So we've
You
done
could go all
Alaska
the
a
way
few
up to
times,
Vancouver,
but
I
you can
guess,
just
and
keep
then
on
Alaska.
going. Yeah.
Wouldn't
So
that be a
that
fun
would be a
back to
fun-
back?
Yep.
Very interesting. So there are options out there,
Yep.
and we look forward to helping our friends and colleagues to figure out what's right for them. When you're ready to book, reach out to Next Wave Cruising. All of our contact information is listed right below this video. If you have found something interesting here, maybe giving you food for thought about one of your next cruise options, please give this video a thumbs up.
Yep.
And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Last I heard, it's free.
It is. What are you waiting for?
That's right, totally free. And it just really is an opportunity for you to know every time we post a new video to the channel. And we can bring you up to date on our cruising adventures, what's happening in the news, what's new in terms of deployments, and all the opportunities you have to make cruising a good part of your next vacation experience.
And what is your new next cruising adventure that you're going to be on?
For me,
Yes.
it is going to be a brand new ship, and we'll be on that ship before the end of this calendar year.
Just a couple of weeks, we're going to be on the Ascent.
That's right. So Celebrity has another new Edge class ship coming out that will debut in the fourth quarter of 2023, and we'll be on the inaugural voyage.
Yeah, and we'll be having some videos of that, so subscribe, and then when we get them done and posted up, you'll be able to see the
You'll be
Ascent.
among the first to see a new ship in action.
Right.
But before you go, do take a look at the video in the upper right-hand corner, because we have crossed the oceans before. So we have more to show you, and we'll meet you in the video over there.
Bye now.